What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Screams and Sorrow, the podcast where we review albums, essentially. And we're checking out Green Day's newest album, Saviors. I'm back again with Alex. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm swell. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. I'm really excited to talk to you about this one because let me tell you, man, I have thoughts. I have, more than any other album, I think I have been sitting here writing a novel of thoughts.
Okay, well, I'm stoked to hear it. I've got some. I'm a big lifelong Green Day fan. I remember being 4 and hearing When I Come Around for the first time. So like I'm bringing a lot to this one as well, but I'm really curious to hear how it was for you then.
Sweet, man. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I do want to give a little bit of info about this. This album did come out January 19th of this year. It is their 14th studio album, which is crazy. Now, they brought in Rob Cavallo to produce it, which worked with them on Dookie and American Idiot, two of my favorite Green Day albums, and I know we're going to get into that ranking a little bit later.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. And now this dude, like, he produced The Black Parade from My Chemical Romance. He produced, like, Goo Goo Dolls' Iris, Paramore's Decode. Like, this guy kind of knows this genre. Now this album did debut. Is that how you say it? Debuted.
Debuted. It debuted.
Maybe I'll have you run with this one next time because like words and me just aren't getting along. But it did debut at number 4 on the Billboard 200 and number 1 in the UK. A couple of extra cool little facts. This is the 30-year anniversary of Dookie and the 20-year anniversary of American Idiot.
Isn't that nuts?
To feel just a little bit old today,
Isn't that nuts?
Alex?
20 years of me thinking Letterbomb is the best song. Just
It's crazy. They are on tour this year with Smashing Pumpkins, Rancid, and the Linda Lindas, which is really cool. And if you have like Rancid, old school punk, love it. Linda Lindas, fantastic. When I saw them when we were young, I think like one of the musicians was like 14 years old at that time. Like it was just insane.
Geez.
But enough about that, man. Like I really got to know overall, what was your thoughts on this album?
I think it's good. I don't think it's great. I wasn't blown away. I thought that it is top third of their work. I think there are a lot of songs that on here are really great, but they're not necessarily the ones that I've seen a lot of hype about online. Like Dilemma came out and everyone was like, Green Day's back. Best thing they've done in a long time. And I was like, it's pretty good. I'm not thinking that this is the second coming of Christ or something here. It was pretty good. But there are better ones in here that I think are buried. I think that it is worth a whole listen. I don't think that it's necessarily an album you have to skip your way through. I think as a whole, much better than anything they've done in a long time.
You know, you kind of mentioned that like people saying like they're back, right? And let's be honest, I think after Father of All Motherfuckers,
their worst
people were kind of like, right? I think people were kind of like, okay, like thank you. At least we did not get that. But look, I got to give my thoughts on this. I hate this album. No, I'm just kidding. I actually think
it had to happen at some point.
I actually think that this is their best album since American Idiot. But even with that said, like I have thoughts because, when Father of All, when that first single came out, I actually did not hate it. I thought this was cool. It was interesting. They were going in a different thing, and I like when bands experiment.
Yeah.
But it did overstay its welcome, and then the rest of the album was like, no, I can't with this.
Green Day has a lot of obviously punk legacy to them, right? But there's a lot, especially as they're getting older, of this sort of bouncier, more classic rock and roll that's kind of coming through. Someone with like you hear it and you see a Gretsch hollow body guitar, and I feel like that's been growing more and more as they get older. They've been leaning more on that and less on the punk side. And Father of All was the biggest offender there. And I think it's just kind of boring. It's like someone who's blues influenced going back and making a 12-bar blues album. Sure, it's fun for you. This is what you were into. Maybe you loved it as a kid, but I don't think it holds up as a whole thing. There's just not enough meat to it.
I hear you, and I think the what you just mentioned on is absolutely true. Like you mentioned about Green Day kind of being more like what you imagine kind of like a rock icon to be, Green Day has established himself, in my opinion, up there with like more like modern bands, which I guess are also like in their 50s at this point, but like Foo Fighters, which like these are just the rock bands
Yeah.
that they will always fill up stadiums. People want to see. Everyone knows their songs. It doesn't matter what genre of music you listen to. And like I've been to two Green Day shows. So one was 2018 and the other one was like right after the pandemic, so like 2021 in September, like literally right after things opened up again. And let me tell you, like those shows are insane. Like Billy is literally a rock icon. He gets up there and he gets everyone on their feet, and the shows are just massive and they sound perfect, and the way they're produced, like it's crazy. But that's like on the live side, and I think they're definitely going to go down in that rock history as like one of the biggest bands ever.
Oh yeah, I saw them in 2009 at what I consider the height of their powers, coming right off of 21st Century Breakdown. That peak between, experience but haven't quite aged into exhaustion yet. And they played like 3.5 hours. It was I'm checking setlist.fm. It was a 28 track show. Massive,
Yeah, their shows are
massive
2.5
show.
hours long.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But when we come back to like this album specifically, let me tell you, I think that there's a tight 11 song, 30-minute album in here that would rival one of their very best. But let me tell you, my biggest issue with this album is I had a very hard time enjoying it the very first couple of listens that I had, because every song, I'm like, wait a minute, wait a goddamn minute, this sounds like something I know. And the more I listened and went down that rabbit hole, I discovered that this is just a remix of 90s and 2000 riffs, licks, and tones, all refurbished in a Green Day package. And this is what I can't wait to break down with you.
Oh boy. Okay, well, hit me with your biggest offenders. If you're cutting this down to 11 tracks, what are you removing?
Well, there's a lot in like the second half of the album, I think, that I'm removing.
Are we some 41ing again, where I like the second half better and you didn't?
Maybe. There are songs like Susie Chapstick, Corvette Summer, Goodnight Adeline, which didn't hit for me. Some of my favorites being 1981. I did like Dilemma a lot from like the personal side of it. Bobby Sox stands out to me a lot. But one of the songs here that should have never made it on this album is One-Eyed Bastard.
Yeah, it's the biggest problem. It's the most frustrating, I would say, potentially infuriating song on here, because I mean, anyone who's listened to it,
Tell me why.
They already know.
Tell me why, Alex. Bring out the guitar. Bring out the guitar. Tell me what's the problem with the song is.
There's the lick from Pink's "So What," right? Which already sounds a little bit like Black Knight by Deep Purple, which is the right. But it only sounds it's that's just kind of riffing around on a little bouncy blues thing, because "So What" is it's 2 notes up from that, so it's right. But this Green Day riff is a much more blatant and direct rip off of that one. And okay, so let me just do them back to back. So Pink and Green Day's. So if you play those two on top of each other, it's the same thing. But then, like you pointed out to me just before this, the other thing is the first part of the chorus is, which I already thought was it's just those boring chords again in the chorus, right? The 6 6 4 4 1 1 5 5, and the vocal is just barely moving, just kind of talky. Vendetta is a friend of mine. Really, really bland. Nothing interesting happening. The Bada Bing Bada Bang, I think, is better, but it's really those little instrumental bridge bits where it does that little Phrygian thing. That is the saving grace of the song. The outro, I think, is the strongest point. But whenever it's meant to be hooking you, that intro riff that they seem to be so proud of, because they sit on it and they just let it hang out there with no color, no accompaniment, nothing to disguise it or spruce it up. It's just flat out, hey, remember Pink? Yeah, me too.
So do me a favor. That part that you sang right now, sing it for me again.
The vendetta is a friend of mine. Revenge is sweeter than wine.
There's a song called "The Passengers" by Iggy Pop, where the chorus goes la 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 la.
Well, and the thing is, I swear I've heard other songs that do that as well. It's just really basic, and I don't understand how it fit in here. That feels like Uno. That feels like lazy mass production Green Day, where they were just like, here's a bunch of stuff that I just thought of once and recorded.
I did check up on an interview about this song because, like, I had to know, like, this, and it's all over the internet. Like, this is something that everyone has noticed, and it's even been brought up.
This isn't a new realization.
No, and Billy has mentioned that he was listening to a lot of like Sabbath and just kind of like old school like rock and metal when he wrote this. Which, granted, I'm sure people who know their music well will say like, yeah, that's in there. They could probably pull out 100 different songs. But to your point, right? There's inspiration, right? And then there's this where it just you cannot enjoy the song because that's all you can think about. Yeah. And there's no way that they didn't know that. And this isn't the only song.
It's like if you're making a big blockbuster and you just start it with a giant ship flowing overhead for 30 seconds, like no one's done this before, and everyone's just like, that's just Star Wars. That's just Star Wars. It's not, this isn't clever. All I can think about is this iconic song. If it was an obscure track, maybe it would work. But this was like the song of the summer in, what was that, 2007? Something like that for Pink?
All right, so that's our thoughts on Green Day Saviors. No, I'm just kidding.
But what else? What else? Like, what else are you removing?
I don't want to break down every song. Like, The American Dream, first off, is up there also as one of my least favorite songs.
It's fine.
It's the single that they released right off. Now, there are, this I didn't know myself, but like researching it, they do sample a song called The Marine Marchand. People on the street, je me suis engagé dans la marine marchande. Which is from a Quebecois shanty that they do, and you listen to it, and this is more of like a sample that they do. I'm cool with that,
sure,
right? And it's actually pretty cool. But it does seem like this was their attempt at kind of like that American Idiot relevance kind of that they had with that song. But 2/3 of the way through this song, I swear to God, that solo that they play, it's a Christmas song. I don't know which Christmas song it is. People think that maybe it's like First Noel. I don't know, but I can't listen to that and not immediately think of Christmas.
No, you're right. If you had that and you just put sleigh bells on top of it, just going on the quarter notes, you're right. That would feel like a Christmas EP.
Yeah, so when that song came out, and I remember reacting to it, I'm like, this is better than Father of All, but I'm not excited about this, right? And I know we've all kind of started off here a little bit on a negative on this album. I'm going to tell you what I love about that, and that's kind of going into the next song, which was Look Ma No Brains. Because this was fast, fun, punk. And Billy's voice sounds better than it has, in my opinion, in a long time. Less effects, less reverb, grit, a little bit of harshness to it. It's just a 2-minute punk song, and I'm like, yes, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that felt like it could have been something they had lying around since Nimrod. I felt like that was a much stronger start to the album, where exactly like you said, first track, which happens to have America in the title, feels like it's aping that 2000s American Idiot and 21st Century Breakdown style.
And man, I'll just talk about this next one real quick, and then I want to kick it over to you because I feel like I'm just going to own this podcast at that time. Fine. But if for people who aren't watching the video, I'm wearing my Hella Mega Tour shirt, which was that 2021 concert. This was Green Day, Fall Out Boy, and Weezer. Huge Weezer fan also.
Weezer is the band I have the strongest opinions about. So if they put something out this year, I will not.
That's going to be a fun one. Bobby Sox started playing, and then I'm like, did Billy just write a fantastic Weezer song? There's no other place I wanna be. Because this song screamed Weezer to me, and honestly, I feel like it's one of the best on the album. I love how he aggressively screams the lyrics like, "Do you wanna be my girlfriend? Do you wanna be my boyfriend?"
Yeah.
Like, and I'm in the car singing this too. "Do you wanna be my boyfriend?" Like, I didn't even care.
Yeah,
it was so good.
He finally wrote his bisexual anthem, right? But
I didn't know he was bi.
Oh.
Like, this is news to me. And I guess this goes back all the way to 1995. And I'm like, dude, that's insane. This is so cool. And honestly, it just makes so much sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, you can see it either as being autobiographical or you can see it as just being inclusive so that everybody gets to sing along. Whoever you're into, hey, half of the song is for you. And the other half,
And
you're
it's a
just
great song.
supporting everybody else. But you talked about the screaming, and I was really impressed by that. Because I remember when 21st Century Breakdown came out, there were a couple screams. And my favorite song before then was Letter Bomb. And it has that one scream right at the bridge. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's like the peak of the album is the bridge of Letter Bomb. And then 21st Century Breakdown did that in a couple places. And I was like, oh, Billy screamed like 3 or 4 times on this album. That's pretty cool. And then in this one, he's not doing that same thing. He's pushing notes through it. At, how old is he? Pushing.
He's like 50. He's
Yeah.
like 51. He's got to be, right?
And in Bobby Socks especially, but in 2 or 3 other songs, he's really going to the top of his range, screaming his guts out, which is a bold move when you're about to be playing this album on tour. And I watched the first show that they played where they played all through Saviors in full. And he's struggling a little bit with it. I mean, he's still, giving it his best, but he just released these songs and already they're almost a little bit out of his range. I don't know if anyone's going to care in a live setting, but it's just that is a bold move. It's not quite like we talked about Anthem Part 3 being a bold move. It's not quite that.
Right.
But for someone at that age to just come out and scream, especially as much as he does on Bobby Socks, that is, he's not messing around.
Yeah, I mean, my man is 52 years old, right? And honestly, he looks younger than I do, I feel. But like, I was very impressed with that song. And then it was just kind of like, okay, this album is hitting with me. We get into Dilemma, which you kind of mentioned already. Like, you felt like it's fine.
It's pretty
and I
good.
get it. From a music standpoint, sure. I think what I relate to and what I like is when we get the more personal side of things. And it's a song that talks about mental health, and it's a song that talks about addiction. And it's very personal to him, and he's talked about that, and it comes through. I think this is one of the songs where his voice really shines on a more emotional level, where you feel like the things that he's singing about actually mean something to him.
Sure. And the screaming from Bobby Socks does come back in this chorus again when he gets up there, especially at the very end. Like he does that little when he gets right up there. It's like, ooh, he's really hammering that home. And this has a lot of those classic rock elements in it as well, more than a punk song. But in this case, I really like what they do. It's just this little tiny bit at the end of the bridge where it does this little thing. It's the thing that the James Bond theme does, where you go from your fifth to your minor sixth to your major sixth. The it does that in this really clever, fun little arpeggiated way. And I think that is one of the best uses of their sort of classic rock and roll 50s sock hop soda shop influences. I think that's the little what do you call it, when there's like a little piece in a song, it's not a sting, it's like a little treat that you find. It's like when you're eating a little tart and there's one blackberry in it and you finally get the blackberry and you're like, oh, that was the best bit. That just made the whole thing so much better. It's delightful. Yeah. It's just like I said with Letter Bomb. It's like the bridge and Letter Bomb that don't look back. Best part of anything they've ever done. That little thing they do, it just, it ASMRs me, and I don't have the tendency for that.
Yeah, no, and that's super cool. And it's like those little things that you can pick up on. And this is where I'm talking, like the album is really hitting. I mean, we have One Eye Bastard. We already talked about that in between there. That comes in and you're just like, what's going on here?
It ends strong. It ends really strong. The instrumental ending is great. Put it in a different song.
And kind of, just capping off Dilemma, like when he has that line where he says, I don't want to be a dead man walking, like you just know he means it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, and it's just, it comes across. So yeah, man. And then we have 1981, which really, it's like,
It's so close. It's so close to being one of their best songs ever. All they had to do was not repeat the same line in the chorus. That's all they had to do, because the rest of it is a killer song. And, bringing in the backing vocal, the so long farewell, that does a lot to offset the repetition. But even just a second line. Even if you did AABA, I would be happy, right? But to just sit on it, you can't do that anymore. That's what made Uno so terrible. It was all the choruses just repeating over and over and over. You can't do that to me because the song's so good. I'm sure you could have come up with another line.
And it's one of those where it's just like, the song has a nostalgic feel. It reminded me of like Bowling for Soup. It reminded me of just like a lot of the rock that I listened to, that even though I was a teenager at the time, like they're just from like the early 90s, that it just had that spirit. But at the same time, it felt right at home in 2024.
Oh yeah.
But it was just almost there, right?
So close. A minus.
But again, like, I'm listening to it and I'm just like, man, this sounds like something. This sounds like something. And I still can't nail exactly what it is. But then we get to Goodnight Adeline. And then I'm just like, did I switch? Am I on shuffle? Is this When I Come Around playing? Wait, there's that little bass fill right there. Wait, no, it's not. I'm like, hold on a second. Is this on purpose?
I didn't catch that. That didn't stand out to me.
Hey, I will give you, if you want, like literally 30 seconds right now and edit it in. Go listen to the first 20 seconds of that song. Okay. Listen to it.
Oh. Okay, so you're right. So it's the same chords as When I Come Around, except they're just 4, 4, 4, 4. Because as we discussed last time in the Sum 41 episode, I said that what made When I Come Around really work is the rhythm, the palm-muted chugs, and the syncopation on the last two chords, and the bass kind of dancing around it. This is very much a slowed down ballroom 70s prom sway back and forth version of When I Come Around, but I get what you're saying. It is there.
It just stood out to me, man. And like the problem at this point, I think, in the album is that I'm almost expecting it. So maybe I'm looking for them. I don't know. But like this song did have like an old school rock song feel to it.
Yeah.
Right? Which I liked, but I just couldn't help with that coming in. And now I feel like, okay, I need to find this in every song, because something's being recycled here. Something is being influenced here. And like, obviously, 14 albums, 30 years, right? To expect them to write like something original every time. I'm sure they're pulling from, and like things are so Green Day now that like you almost expect it. It's too close. It's distracting.
Sure, because you can do something like Look Ma No Brains, where it's just those same three chords again, with the exception of the killer bridge. But they've always been doing that, and they've always been able to do it fast enough that there's enough going on lyrically or rhythmically that you don't necessarily go, oh, this sounds like just like something else. But I think this one probably stands out more because it's slow. It's
Maybe.
not, there's no punk energy coming through to make you be like, yeah, I'm on board. It's just more plodding. So I think that's why it's a bigger offender. And again, on the chorus, the let it go, he does that peak of his range again. He's coming screaming. It's not relevant to anything else. Just bringing that up.
So Alex, I know what the listeners are thinking. They're probably thinking like, hey, Eric, chill out. At this point, you're just nitpicking. But like, honestly, I feel like this album has conditioned me to try to find these things, and it doesn't stop there. Corvette Summer starts playing. Right? And did anyone else immediately think of Jack Black in School of Rock? Because at the 22-second mark, I don't want no money. I don't want no fame. If you want to be the teacher's pet. No?
Yeah, no, you're right. I didn't think that, but I knew it felt, it's my least favorite song on the album. Felt like that classic sort of messing around, improvisational, late 70s, early 80s rock, right? And that's the kind of thing that Jack Black would make up in School of Rock. You're absolutely right.
It just, yeah, and I think that's like the biggest thing. And like, man, that cowbell started going off, and for some reason, all I could like visualize in my head was Will Ferrell in the background with that cowbell just going dun,
Sure.
dun, dun,
It's really interesting the influence that has had, because sometimes the cowbell can be used organically, but when it's not, everyone immediately latches onto, oh, you're doing it because of the Don't Fear the Reaper joke.
right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. And like, I think earlier on in the conversation, I mentioned Susie Chapstick, and I saw your face, and I kind of feel like you have a soft spot for this song. So
I like
tell
Susie
me about it.
Chapstick. I think it's a great time. I don't know. So, okay. So first of all, one thing that I like that they did this time is all of the song titles just being random stuff. Like, what's Bobby Socks? Is that a person? Is that a character? I don't know. Who's Susie Chapstick?
They're socks.
I also
You know
need to-
Bobby Socks?
Oh, no, wait. Is that like a brand of socks?
Bobby Socks are kind of like I think not thigh, but what's that? What calf high socks that were used by women in the 50s and 60s?
Oh,
Yeah, it's a thing.
okay. Anyway, for Susie Chapstick, with the exception of the Instagram mention in the second line, I feel like it's a really good Green Day ballad, because they only have a few of those. Obviously, it's not quite up there with Macy's Day Parade or Last Night on Earth or debatably What's Her Name, if you can class that. I feel like the first 2/3 of it you could class as a ballad. But Susie Chapstick just, it evoked a different vibe from the rest of the album, and I really appreciated that. I don't know, there's something, after all the screaming and shouting and all of the energy chasing, there was something so earnest and subdued about Susie Chapstick. Instead of your normal upset relationship Green Day song, this one feels like genuine pleading and longing. And if there's one thing I will always be a sucker for in songs, it's feeling longing. Whether it's Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode or I Never Told You What I Do for a Living by My Chemical Romance, if you can feel that the singer is desperate for something that they don't have anymore and there's doubt, like that's the thing that always pulls me in. Like, yeah, tell me about how you tell me about how you're just simpering for this thing that you don't think is ever going to happen. And as far as I know, maybe it's all in your head, like the Joaquin Phoenix Joker. Like, maybe this didn't actually happen, but you were just so desperate for it. Like, that stuff's crack for the internal 14-year-old in me. So this one really hit for me. I really like this as a sort of late album break, a pause, much like Last Night on Earth, which I believe closes out Act 1 of 21st Century Breakdown. It's either that or Christian's Inferno. I can't remember. No, Christian's Inferno goes into Last Night on Earth. Yeah, it closes out Act 1. I feel like this functions similarly, where it's like we have our little break before we go into more of a climax. Because right after that, Strange Days Are Here to Stay is next. And I feel like that's a really strong song on the album. Because, ever since realistically 2004, Green Day has been talking about modern issues in the country in some sort of metaphorical or larger sort of broader sense. But Strange Days Are Here to Stay, and right after it, Living in the 20s, I feel like do that pretty well. The first track we talked about, American Dream is Killing Me, it just felt like they were trying to do that old thing again, and it didn't really work.
It's too on the nose.
Yeah, but these two work really well for me. The basic concept of just life is weirder now is a specific angle that I don't think they had done before. And so that really worked for me. And then Living in the 20s, it's also just wild to think that we're in the 20s again. But these 20s aren't roaring. They're different. But so I felt those two hit really hard for me. And I guess just going down through the rest, Father to a Son, I think, is another strong ballad. Do like it more than Susie Chapstick. So if you're going to cut Susie Chapstick from your Title 11, that's fine. We've still got Father to a Son. That one works really well. And again, that one felt earnest and real. I feel like Saviors should have been bigger if it's the title track, but it's just a little 255. and the
100%
chorus
agree.
just being calling all saviors, can somebody save us? That's a little vague, and it's very passive voice for a big bombastic Green Day song. There's no I'm doing something. There's no call to action. It's just, oh no, poor us. Somebody come save us from the big bad government corruption. Which, to be fair, I would take if someone would save us from the big bad government corruption. But
I'm with
not
you
complaining about that.
100%.
But like it's just very stand on the sidelines, which was a little weird.
Yeah, and like, and I know you kind of ran through all of them here real quick, and I
sorry.
agree with you on all of them. I mean, Father to Son being a song I actually really, really liked, and as a dad also, like, you know, it's nice to hear these songs that you can relate to.
Sure.
So I really don't have much to add from what you said because I think you nailed it, and I feel I would just be repeating a lot of what you said. I would just say, like, for the listeners, if you're interested, and you know, for you, Alex, as well, is, you know, go listen to Susie Chapstick for like, you know, a minute and a half.
Will I ever see your face again? Not just photos from an Instagram.
And then immediately put on Nellie's Dilemma with Kelly Rowland.
No matter what I do, all I think about is you.
And just tell me if you don't have a brain fart.
Holy balls! Holy crap! No, I put it on right now. Oh my gosh!
It's the same.
You're right. Cut it. Cut the track. Get it out of there. They did it again. They did the so what riff again. Oh my holy balls! I have heard this though. I'd forgotten about it. I hadn't heard this since it came out. But you're right. It's just this again. Like, oh, even lyrically, it's not that different. Oh no.
Nope. It's a thing,
no,
man.
Eric.
I'm telling you, this is Green Day's homage, if that's how you say it, of, I guess, all of the 2000s bangers, man, including their own. I mean, Father to Son, I love it. I can't help thinking this is some kind of spiritual successor to Wake Me Up When September Ends. With a little
But
bit
that
of,
I feel like is valid. If you're doing
Yeah.
a successor to your own thing 20 years later, moving on from a song about your dad to a song about being the dad, I think that's beautiful.
And I thought that was amazing, and
yeah.
it had a little bit of a mix of like Scarecrows or Sleep from My Chemical Romance, and I wonder if like the producer had a little bit of say into that. I'm not sure, but those are like little things that, you know, again, maybe I'm nitpicking. Again, you listen to Sleep or Scarecrow from MCR, and then you listen to Father to a Son, and you're like, how come these sound so similar? But
I mean, the other thing that you have to keep in mind, it's not just Rob Cavallo that bleeds over between those two bands. It's also Chris Lord-Alge, the guy who's like the 2000s rock mixer who creates the
Yeah.
final mixes for these albums. He's also on both of those.
So there you go. So, you know, you guys heard it here first. Probably not first. You probably had the same thoughts I did.
man,
Maybe
though.
we
That
pulled
Nellie
in
track,
some
I
like
did not think about that.
we pulled in some old school bangers. I gotta ask, Alex, you gave me I guess a ranking.
Yeah, man.
What's your rating? What's your ranking?
All right, throw it up on the board for the video, which got lost, but throw this image up at least. Here's my tier list. Do you have it?
Yep.
This is in order. Number 1 is American Idiot, obviously. Number 2 is Nimrod. That's arguably a tie. When I go back to Nimrod every time, I'm always blown away by how much it holds up. 21st Century Breakdown, there are a couple of duds in there, but I don't think it detracts from how phenomenal so much of that album is. Dookie, top of A tier. What do you need to say about Dookie? Dookie's great. FOD is
Classic.
a fantastic song. Saviors, I think, comes in probably next. I don't know. Some of the sheen might wear off in a little bit. It could end up in the B tier. Because right now my B tier is going first Insomniac, then let me make sure I get the number right. 1039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hours. Then Revolution Radio, which again, I feel like is Saviors-ish, where there's some really good stuff and then some filler. Then Kerplunk, then Minority. Sorry, not Minority. Warning. It's got Minority on it. It's called Warning. Below that is our forgettable stuff with Trey, I think, being the best of the trilogy. Then
Yep.
Shenanigans being above Dose, and then Uno being the worst. And as we mentioned earlier, Father of All down at the bottom. Father of All D tier.
Honestly, I don't disagree with this list. I think the only change, 21st Century didn't hit, I think, with me as much. But I would probably not have it in the S and have it in the A. right behind Dookie. So my ranking would be
Yeah.
first. Yeah, Green Day is sorry, Green Day, obviously. American Idiot is number one for me, followed in number two by Dookie. Then it would be Nimrod, then 21st Century, and then Saviors. I do Saviors is in the A. I do think it is their best album that they have released in going on 20 years, I guess, at this point.
So do you think it's
And-
better than 21st Century Breakdown?
No, it's under 21st Century.
Okay, so it's their best in 15 years.
15 years, my bad. Thank
Sure.
you. Best in 15 years. A lot, like, now that I got all of that out of my head and what it sounds like, and I could just appreciate it for what it is.
I hope this has been therapeutic for you. Now
Yeah.
you can enjoy the thing. But oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that Nellie track, that was so, to me, that was, as soon as I heard it, that was so much more blatant than the Pink ripoff. Oh jeez. Yep. This is another one that needs a cut down. It's kind of wild. A lot of albums get released, and when you're writing music, because we're working on a couple songs right now, right? When you're writing music, it can be really difficult to step outside of being so close to the song and being able to tell really what's good and what's not. Some of these tracks probably shouldn't have wound up on here, and sometimes making your own little playlist of an album is what you got to do. Which, if we ever get to Weezer, I am going to beat you over the head with my red restructure, because
Well, we have to get there, man. And like, look, here's just my rebuttal to that. Is like Green Day, in my opinion, I feel like Billy Joel is a
Billy
genius
Joe.
songwriter. Billy
No,
Joel, my bad. I keep
yeah.
on saying Billy Joel.
That's
for
a
some
different
reason.
guy.
That's like the dyslexia at play right here. Billy Joe, he is a genius songwriter, in my opinion. I feel like he is the type of songwriter where you could reach out to him and say, write me a number one single, and he would have very little trouble writing that for you.
sure.
I feel that Mike is one of the best bass players within the genre, and I think Trey is severely underrated with his drumming skills.
He's talked about how his favorite drummer is Ringo Starr, and you can really tell because he lives in the song. He's not necessarily there to showboat. He's not trying to snatch your attention away. He's not there to make you constantly go, whoa, killer drums. He's not Travis Barkering this. He is an organic part of the existing song, just driving the energy. And you're right. I don't know if he gets enough credit for that.
All right. The three of them together, I highly doubt that anything that we're talking about went over their heads. If anything, I think they had a mission, they had a plan, right? And I'm not saying like they listened to Nellie's Dilemma and they're like, oh, we got to do that for Susie Chapstick, right? But I think they're tuned in to what's popular, to what hit, to the things that this to me does feel like a nostalgia style album, that they tried to pull influences from the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s, and they injected that and gave it their own little twist. They just didn't give it enough of a twist for me where it didn't like just stand out and make it where like I just couldn't hear it. That's my final thought. So, but who knows? Maybe they go over their heads, and maybe I'm just nitpicking the hell out of this album. But again, I loved it. I think it's great. It's up there in the top 5, and definitely one that I think I'll revisit a lot more than a lot of other Green Day albums, I think, as time goes on. So really excited for that. Any closing thoughts, Alex?
I am kind of surprised to hear that you did like it that much, because it did sound like you had a bad time. But
I
you
know,
are
right?
There are a lot of disappointments in it. I think this is very good. And if you just are expecting it to be, solid, better than it could have been, a huge step up from what they've done in a while, then you're going to have a great time. I don't think there's any must listen tracks on it necessarily, but the way I tried to think about it while going through after having listened a few times is, if I was at a Green Day show, how many of these songs would I pop off for? If they start playing any song off this album, how many would I immediately go like, oh yes, I'm so glad this is happening right now? And it's probably like 3 or 4. Like if they played Coma City, I'd be like, yes, absolutely. Let's do it right now. Coma City, Strange Days Are Here to Stay, Living in the 20s.
For me, it would be Bobby Sox. But like, listen,
Yeah,
honestly,
Bobby
if they
Sox.
start playing One-Eyed Bastard, I'm gonna be there. Na 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 na. I'm just gonna be in it I'll probably start singing the wrong lyrics, but I'll
Guess
be
I
having
just
a lot
lost
of
my
fun.
husband.
Awesome, Alex. Well, thank you once again for joining me. Let us know in the comments what you guys thought about Saviors. Roast us for for everything if you want to. But yeah, really excited to hear what you guys thought about it. And I never really know how to close these off, but thank you guys for listening. And Alex, I'll see you soon.
Right on.